really believe that there's a way to win. You just have to figure it out.
We've seen powerhouse teams crumble under pressure and underdog squads defy all odds to reach the pinnacle of success. Is it all about stacking a roster with talent? Or maybe it's having a generational quarterback who can put the team on his back? Sure, talent matters. And yes, having an elite QB can change everything. But there's one undeniable thread woven through every great football team: the head coach. The truth is, a great coach can turn a good team into a champion. And a bad one, well, they can take a playoff contender and drive it straight into the ground. If your team has ever been coached by a guy who can't lead a Pop Warner team, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So how much does a coach actually contribute to winning? Is it strategy, culture, leadership? Maybe something we can't even measure. Let's dive into and unravel the truth about whether coaching really matters in the NFL. Chapter 1, Mastermind. If I were to give you a list of the greatest coaches to ever put on a headset, I'm sure you got some obvious choices and legends on that list. Comment your GOAT coaches down below and let's see who makes the cut. For me, I got a few no-brainers, like Bill Belichick, the number 2 all-time winningest coach in NFL history. Belichick is the only coach to win 9 conference titles and 6 Super Bowls. Under Belichick's watch, the Patriots posted 19 consecutive winning seasons, 17 straight playoff seasons, and 17 division titles. And he made your Brady the GOAT. Anyway, next up, my guy Tony Dungy.
Let's go finish it off, man.
See, Dungy commanded 2 different franchises to multiple playoff appearances and wins. In addition, he won 148 games and made the Indianapolis Colts a relevant franchise, because who's done that? He brought the Tampa 2 to life and is a scheme that's still used today. During Dungy's 7-year career in Indy, the Colts posted 12 or more wins in all but one of their seasons, and they won a Super Bowl. And he's the first black coach to achieve that feat in the NFL. Next up, the guy Don Shula. Shula's 328 regular season wins and 347 total wins remains number 1 in the record books. In 33 seasons as an NFL head coach, Shula posted a whopping 31 winning seasons. The GOAT. And his 1972 Dolphins still remain the only team in NFL history to have a perfect season. Sorry, Belichick. So among those great coaches of all time, we still have some of the guys in today's game. We're talking Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, Nick Sirianni, John Harbaugh, and Sean McVay. All these guys remain commanding the franchises they guided into Super Bowl glory. Out of that list, Reid, Harbaugh, and Tomlin are the most tenured coaches, with the firing or mutual parting of Belichick and the Patriots after 24 seasons. Each coach will tell you they only win because of the players they have, which is obviously true, but doesn't mean they have no hand in what goes down on the field. They just sit there and watch everybody execute. I doubt it. Nah, because there's a big difference between these guys and these straight trash can dudes, those Pop Warner squad guys I was talking about, who can't coach their way out of a paper bag. Now you also got to comment your top worst coaches in NFL history. I'm sure 1 or 2 of these guys will be on the list. Like Nathaniel Hackett, you know, the one and done Broncos coach who almost got fired like mid-season. The Walmart money could not excuse this guy or buy success. Hackett's clock management and lack of leadership led the Broncos to offensive lows and 4-11 record. He pretty much ruined Russell Wilson's career, or maybe rested at himself. Either way, Hackett only did manage to do one GOAT thing in his career. He got Sean Payton off the couch and he got him to talk greasy about him.
It was one of the worst coaching jobs we've ever seen.
Next is David Shula. Oh yeah, nepotism police. We have the son of a legendary coach, Don Shula, stink up the NFL. See, Junior, unlike his father, was pure cheeks. Shula went 19-52 as Cincinnati's head coach, failing to post a winning record in any of his 4+ seasons. He has the 5th worst winning percentage in league history and is the only coach with a sub 30% win rate allowed to coach more than 70 games. Okay, don't worry about it, because not to be outdone, Hugh Jackson just entered the room. Jackson didn't have much talent on the Browns, for sure, and they were obviously tanking, but made it very easy to get himself fired. See, Jackson went 1-31 in his first 2 seasons in Cleveland, and his only victory came off of a field goal, like 3 points separates him from an L. And somehow Jackson allowed to keep his job, I guess because they knew they was tanking, and just for him to go into 2018 2-5-1 before his eventual firing. And Jackson, of course, has the second worst winning percentage of all time. Now, not experience or scheme or all that rah-rah stuff is strong enough indication about whether or not your team has a great coach. The stuff that separates the winners and losers is clearly more intricate. Chapter 2, KYP. Know your personnel. See, these coaches have mastered the art of playing with the hands they were dealt. In essence, you could say they understood the phrase, know your enemy and yourself.
Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Attack weaknesses, utilize strengths.
It's easy to name formations like power I, wing T, single back, pistol, trips, ace, etc. 21, 22, or 11 personnel. Motion, ghost motion, power run game, or zone blocking scheme. We can talk about the 34 front, the 5-2, odd versus even front, nickel and dime defenses, man, zone, or combo coverage, twist, stunts, and blitzing. See, we can get into all the nuances about the X's and O's of football, but the mark of a good coach, not even that, a great coach, is someone who can take all that coaching philosophy, all the X's and O's, and break it down for the Jimmies and Joes to go out there and execute with precision to defeat any opponent in their way. Does the offensive scheme matter for that 6th round pick that won 6 Super Bowls with one franchise? Or does having a lockdown corner with his own nickname come from a single coverage or scheme? Could the success of modern day players only be contributed to what is shouted over the headset? It will always be about the players. They execute the most flawed plans and plays, down in and down out. But the consistent winners in this league have always looked to the man at the helm to make them great and increase the greatness of the others around them. Chapter 3, Architects. In a league with many good players, how do you get your guys to stand out while highlighting their individual talents? You get the right man to design a scheme that fits around the best players on the team. Take Bill Walsh, the creator of the West Coast offense. Walsh learned under the feet of Al Davis' vertical passing game and using some of Sid Gilman's offensive philosophy in Cincinnati to cover up injuries to the quarterback, thus birthing the West Coast offense. Walsh put the West and West Coast, went to Cali, and led the 49ers and Joe Montana to almost GOAT status, along with that guy Jerry Rice. And the mark of how good Bill Walsh was, most teams still run some version of the West Coast offense to this day. The RPO, or run pass option, is credited by many people like Rich Rodriguez, Art Briles, and even the quarterback Alex Smith. Chip Kelly was instrumental in bringing the RPO game into the NFL, and the RPO game is still a main staple in today's offenses. Legendary Oklahoma Sooners coach Bud Wilkinson devised his Okie defense. Wilkie's defense, which actually began as a 5-4, ended up turning into what we know as the 3-4, and he helped the Sooners win a bunch of championships and 47 consecutive games. Former New England Patriots coach Chuck Fairbanks is credited with introducing the 3-4 alignment in the NFL. The 1972 Dolphins that we talked about earlier, they were the first team to win the Super Bowl playing a 3-4 defense. And the guy Tom Landry, he introduced a lot of innovation to the NFL, like flex defense and multiple offenses in the 1960s. In the 1970s, he restructured the shotgun or spread offense, and in the 80s, he embraced situational substitutions, getting the right guys on the field to match personnel. Landry is also credited heavily with innovating the 4-3 defense into the NFL. If not for the brains of the operation, the game of football would look totally different than it does today. The style, the flash, and the complexities all come from the brilliance of coaching, but the game is still won between the white lines. And if it's not for the players, they have to go out there and execute the revolutions of today's football. But these archetypes have shown us that any player with the right scheme and coached properly will get the greatness out of them required to win. Chapter 4, Keys to Victory. A coach can be a mastermind, an architect, master motivator, develop players, and all that stuff, right? But then how do we have such bad coaches? And who really gets the credit for winning at the highest level? On average, about 6 or 7 new coaches in the NFL fill vacant roles. What's up with the high turnover? Well, the NFL is relentless in quote unquote trying to pursue a Super Bowl or just winning, period. I mean, I know you probably would love having the bragging rights of your team finally hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. But if we take a closer look at who's winning and why they consistently are at that point, we can see there's a common thread. Some of the coaches I mentioned earlier, right? Reed, Tomlin, McVay, Sirianni, they've won rings. Pete Carroll too, which for some reason the Raiders hired this 100-year-old man to be their head coach. So the offensive and defensive gurus that keep getting hired are certainly not for sure going to get your team to a Super Bowl or even be around long enough to develop anybody on the roster. Take Kyle Shanahan. He's still trying to get his ring after Reed handed him 2 L's. Or Dan Quinn, who has also came up empty-handed, and Zach Taylor, who after losing his 1 Super Bowl is starting to look a little mid even with Joe Burrow. Think of your favorite teams and eras of football. Comment them, and I want you to hear who was behind some of those teams and eras. Like right now, Andy Reid has 3 Super Bowls in the 2020s. The 2010s and 2000s, you have some guys who snuck in and got their first ring here and there, but for the most part, we know Belichick had those eras on lock. And Jimmy Johnson and Mike Shanahan, they pretty much split up the 90s. Walsh, Joe Gibbs, and Bill Parcells, they had the 80s chopped up. Chuck Noll, Don Shula, and Landry are 70s football, and with a little help from John Madden. I think you've heard of him. And of course, Lombardi, I mean, he's the freaking Super Bowl trophy, so you know what that's about. He won the first 2 titles anyway, which led to the trophy to be named after him. Point being, you don't have iconic teams without legendary coaches at the ready, leading the troops into battle every week. Let me know what you think though. How much does coaching really matter in the NFL? For me, it's simple. Coaching is the ultimate difference maker. Either you can live in misery or you can live in joy. And that right there is an indicator of if you got a great coach. Took this formula and made it something and had consistent winning. Not just with one player, not just with one scheme, but able to morph and move and shake how they needed to so that you, the fan, the organization, the front office, everybody get a ring. And everybody's happy, or everybody gets fired. Go check out how coaching sealed the fate of these great teams in the NFL. And I'll talk with y'all on the next one, fam. Peace.
There's some things you have to protect. Find the weaknesses of your opponent and attack.